Hey, The Frontrunner, The Life of Steve Prefontaine is available for pre-order from the generous people at HarperCollins and Mariner Books. I've gotten some nice notes from people who beat that link like it owed them money. You can visit the bookseller of your choice. Maybe drop down $32.99 for one, or $65.98 for two, or $98.97 for three. I'm just spitballing here. Everything helps. Every author, under the sun begs for pre-orders, and you only have so many dollars at your disposal, so I'll just say, please consider it. All right, listen. Promotional support for the podcast is brought to you by the Power of Narrative Conference, celebrating its 26th year on the last weekend of March 28th and 29th. 300 to 400 journalists from around the world will descend on Boston, the capital city of my home state. Keynote speakers include Susan Orlean, Connie Schultz, and Dan Zach, and they're going to deliver the knowledge. And then they're batting cleanup, closing keynote with none other than Connie Chung. Listeners to this podcast can get 15% off your enrollment fee by using the code CNF15. To learn more, visit calmbeyond.bu.edu and use that code CNF15. Oh, you ready for this week's theme song? I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. It's kind of a lot of work to find these clips, but here she is.
Because the work I make finds its readers because it is designed for them.
For me, envy is a real sibling to awe.
I'm just a mule.
This is going to have to interest somebody somewhere other than me.
Oh, hey there, CNFers. It's the Creative Nonfiction Podcast, a show where I speak to tellers of true tales about the true tales they tell. I'm Brendan O'Mara, the voice of a generation. If you're in Eugene, Sunday, January 19th, I'm doing a live recording with a local writer, journalist, storyteller, Chandler Henderson at Gratitude Brewing from 1 to 3 p.m. The pod recording will be in a 45-minute window in that 2-hour slot. As part of a social event, we're looking ahead to events in the spring with Leah Satilli, who has a new book out, and me, who has a new book out. So keep your CNF and ear to the ground. Today we have Brooke Champagne. She's the author of the excellent, superlative essay collection, Nola Face, A Latina's Life in the Big Easy. It's published by the University of Georgia Press. This was a wild, rollicking conversation. How could it not when Brooke butters me up with things like this?
You were the Dan Patrick of creative nonfiction. How about that?
But seriously, I feel like Brooke is a sister from another mister. Odd, because my true biological sister is also named Brooke. So there's some cosmic weirdness on the prowl. Some guests come on and they sit back and play pickleball. This was Grand Slam tennis. If you like the word fuck, you're going to love this chat. Show notes to this episode and more at BrendanO'Mara.com. Hey, there. You can sign up for my monthly Rage Against the Algorithm newsletter, book recommendations, links to cool shit, an exclusive happy hour, first of the month, no spam, can't beat it. There's also patreon.com/CNFpod. If you want to throw a few bucks into the CNF and coffers, the upper tiers get coaching calls with me. We can work some things out for you. Had a good one the other day with patron Michael Gerber. If you want to window shop, check out patreon.com/CNFpod. Okay. So Brooke has written like a million essays, closer to 30, but close enough. So we dig into the art of the essay, finding voice, writing a ton of bad shit, asking your writing group for the feedback you want and need, and sitting back from the Suckitude. What the fuck does that mean? I have a parting shot on what it means to be a pro. But for now, here is Brooke Champagne. Huh. Let's just in terms of essay as just as a genre, what is it about essays that you like as a writer and a reader?
They're weird. you can do anything with them. I think about as well, I guess I was talking to a friend about this recently because I teach in the MFA program, and I'm currently teaching a creative nonfiction workshop, and the kids these days, the 20 somethings are very, I'm always learning from them, and they're like, we don't believe in genre. A lot of them say that. And I'm kind of like, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, I think in essays, you know what I mean? Like it's just something happens, or just a fixation that I get. And I'm like, I don't know how else I'm going to work it out. Like, I just don't know how else I can do it. It's not going to be lineated. I'm not going to create a fake character who's going through this shit. It's got to be me. And and I guess I started doing, I mean, it's been decades. It's been it's been like over half my life that this was just the path that I take to figure out the stuff that I'm going through, or that the world's going through, or hopefully both at the same time,
Absolutely. And who were some of the early essay writers that you read that you locked into, that like you kind of turned the world from black and white into color for you?
Well, not necessarily an essayist, and we don't have to parse essay and memoir unless you want to. We can totally go down that road, which I kind of do in the book too. But when I read Mary Karr's Liars Club, I was like, fuck yes. It was that moment of both like, I could never ever do this, but also like, I want to try.
Yeah.
Something about like growing up nasty poor, but like hopeful, and like making everything funny. There's just something about the ethos of her and of that book that I was like, that kind of turned things. I was like, okay, graduate school, like find some kind of path of writing something along these lines. But as far as the essay, like a personal essay, I don't know if it was like one collection. It was sort of like, once I started writing them, I kind of gobbled up just every contemporary essayist I could, and so sort of Melissa Phoebos's and the Leslie Jameson, everyone who, like, by the way, who are not stylistically like me, but just sort of figuring out how other people do it, how they figure out a way to start, continue, and end. So I
like that, and I often kind of use music as a metaphor, and just in terms of, if you're feeling stuck, or you want to draw some inspiration in whatever genre you might be noodling in, you'd be like, you know what, I'm going to pull this album down, I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to try to mainline this into my head. And
hell yeah.
And that's kind of like a good essay, or a good essay collection from your favorite writer. Be like, I'm just a little stuck. I'm going to put this track on the record player, and I'm going to just get this into my brain and be like, oh, okay, that's going to kind of grease the skids for me.
Yeah, I love that. Can I this is so funny that you mentioned music, because I'm teaching a class in voice in the spring, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm doing with that. And just like a little assignment I thought of, just something short, would be to really have students not bring in their favorite song, because favorite song, that's a hard thing to do, but bring in a song where you're like literally studying the voice, not even having to know much about music, but like, what is the voice, what is the sound in this discrete song doing that matches the content, or that diverges from it, or like just trying to describe someone else's voice, how it sounds, so then we can like do that in our sentences too. Anyway, just like a music note.
Yeah, well, it goes to a point where we can draw, I mean, you can even just, for the writing of lyrics, or even just the writing of the musical notation itself, those are artistic media that can really inform like our own prose. And for you, and just what are some other things that you consume that helps inform the writing you do?
The music for sure. I've sort of long been a fan of hip hop and folk kind of stuff, like really the sort of almost polar opposites, but really lyric driven. I like to just figure out how like words are arranged in music. And so I listen to that quite a bit, not necessarily to get myself in the writing mode, but just as like a kind of daily practice. And really too, like, just bodily movement is kind of like the thing that I have to
Hmm.
do before I sit down to write, or else I'm just like jittery as fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like I can't. I like if I'm gonna have to sit here for a couple hours, I need to sort of in a different way be exhausted so that I can't sit there and self-loathe. So running and weightlifting and all that, all that silly stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, in terms of music, I usually will shoehorn, and no matter what I do, I will find a way to get like just a snippet of a Metallica lyric into something I've
Oh
done.
yeah,
I
really.
always do it. In this latest book that I've written that's in copy edits now, like like even got a little Nirvana in there.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. From my favorite Nirvana song is Penny Royalty, and I got a lyric from that in there that fits the theme of what I was talking about. But I was just like, "Ooh, I'm gonna steal anemic royalty, and I'm just gonna put it in here." And
Oh, that's so nice. Did you quote directly, or was it just sort of like did you get away with a little paraphrasing?
I getting away with some paraphrasing. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not gonna be.
getting away with that.
Yeah, because I'm living in the early
Yeah.
'70s in this book, so it's like to have Nirvana in there would not work. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did put in that phrase, and I was like, yeah, this fits.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you're teaching a course on voice, and that's something I have in my notes too that I wanted to talk to you about because your writing is very voicey in a great way because you kind of just lock into your point of view and the way you're bringing your words to the page. So, just in terms of voice, how did you work through that and start to develop your own?
Oh God. How this Brendan, this is only an hour,
I know.
conversation here. It's a great question. I mean, I think that it's sort of like like nothing but time. Like it's just this is also a subject of the book. My vast amounts of writerly and other kinds of envy. And like just these young whippersnappers who are like, I'm 25, I got a fucking book, and I'm like, how?
Yeah,
Like it's just one of those things. Like also like kudos, and it's amazing,
and
but
fuck
for
you.
me, and fuck you. Also that I love them. These are by the way like former students who are like amazing all-star people, but also like how? But they just are. They're just brilliant. I needed to really suck for a long time to figure out who I was on the page. I just don't know even how else to say it. And I think that's sort of what voice is, like just knowing who you are on the page, like that sort of um for me, I mean, I think I have like many different voices, but kind of just like really self-deprecating but also confident, finding that line of like, I fucking know this. Also, please love me. Also, maybe I don't know this. And if you disagree, it's really okay. Kind of thing. Invitational sort of thing. It just took getting rid of the thing that I sometimes still do. And I try to like get this tick out of myself of like, of posturing, of like, guys, I promise you I went to college. I promise you I read and I have a little bit of smarts. I think I had that real imposter syndrome of like I shouldn't even be here. So so let me find the words that I don't even fully understand the definitions of. I had that in my writing for a while, and I tried to, just things like that, the ticks, getting rid of the ticks that are not purposeful. There are some ticks that are purposeful, and that kind of helps with the voice. Yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I just had to suck
Yeah.
and then sort of sit back from the suckitude and know when it did suck and be like, okay, that is strip away the stuff that is really not me, like the sort of faux academic or something, even though I've like been in academia my whole adult life, like that's not my ethos, even though it's my work. You know what I
Oh
mean? Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Oh,
Like, I
absolutely.
just like, first gen college grad, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people the best writers are the ones, or the most prolific are probably the ones who can sit with their bad writing long enough to get to the good stuff. And you said like sitting with the suckitude, which I love. And so like how did you just kind of cultivate the perseverance to weather the suckitude so you could get to ultimately what is, a distillation of you, in book form, essay form, whatever.
Oh, that's so great. Like I'm trying to envision what that looks like, what your question looks like, and like if you and the listeners could see what how to weather that perseverance is like my pathetic ass self like crying and like I've given up. Fuck this. Like I don't need to do this. Who needs this pain? Like why? Why? For like 100 readers like on a good day like what am I why? So to persevere, I guess it's just I think I had like somehow along the way over many years just made writing itself kind of a tick. You know, like the
Hmm.
thing that I was talking about earlier, like, yeah, I get up every day and I, jog with the dog and I do this and I fail to meditate and then I sit and write. And it's just like another, just sort of another thing that I'm doing and being like less judgmental of like, oh, like finding this. And by the way, I'm the opposite of fucking Zen in my life, but I have tried to find in writing, like not to get so elated on the good days, like the good writing days or the good writing sessions, like, oh my, like I used to have that. And I think that was a problem. Like I'd have a great writing session, be like, does everyone know I'm a fucking genius? Like, wow. And then on the bad days, does everyone know that I'm the biggest fraud? And now I think it's just like, over time, it's just finding a way to be like, oh, that was just it's just another day. It's just another session. Glad for that good sentence, but also like, whatever, I'll probably get rid of it tomorrow. So all that to say is that I did all of this very immaturely and it took a long time to just sort of be like, all right, it's just something I do. It's not precious. It's not important, but it's not important too, you know?
Yeah. Well, and given that it takes a long time to find your voice, through a lot of repetition, a lot of reading, a lot of practice, looking over your shoulder and seeing the success of others often makes that it feels like that time it's just not happening for you. And
Hmm.
how have you metabolized that over the years of that comparison trap while you're still just kind of struggling and spinning your tires?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think really Cheryl Strait or someone said like in I think maybe in Tiny Beautiful Things something about just like maybe she said it a couple times and I think it helped me. This was like probably a decade ago of just like envy is just such a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's just like there's no like you're not going to find your voice if you're like but that voice and that voice and that like you can't. And also that's so it again like another process of like just being like you know what also when one thing that this is really true the longer I've been alive I guess and the more students I've taught the more like working writers I know and this is also perhaps immature but it has worked for me of just being like dude for real their success is actually my success like I have tried to help cultivate other people's work and I just kind of feel like karmically when good stuff happens to people I know like I'm just like oh, that's like weirdly feeding me it's not
Hmm.
something that's like against me it's not like oh they got something so I can't it's not no like they got something that's fucking awesome and like I was part of their journey so like I get some of that you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean like every time something good happens to a student, I'm like, oh my God, you're welcome. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, it takes a long time to reach that point. I know just going back into the start of this podcast and really the crucible through which it was forged through was just through a swamp of bitterness and resentment. And, and it was my
You can't tell. You can't tell because you're very generous.
well,
So
this was part of it was an exercise in trying to kind of like what you're saying is kind of celebrate people instead of feeling like it's a zero sum game.
right.
And even Hanifa Durraqib, who we spoke to several months ago at this point, and I
Mhm,
asked him
mhm.
about envy and jealousy, and he phrased it in the best way that only Hanif can. It was just like he
Yeah.
started to see envy as a cousin or a sister to awe, and
Yes.
and
I remember that conversation. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, like what a great way. Like if you're starting to
Yeah.
feel that spidey sense or that tickle of
Mhm.
envy and jealousy, it's like, okay, you kind of note it and you realize like, oh, that's a door opening instead of a door closing. And it's just really it's really the only way you're going to survive, to think of it in those terms.
Yes, that was that was so good. By the way, I'm teaching Hanif right now. I'm teaching
Nice.
the basketball and Ascension, and it's and so and the way that he says, like, he calls his readers beloveds, that's just another like invitation to be like, I love you. All right. It's like, I'm gonna read that because like, so yes, the little phrasings, but yes, the awe thing is really true. And I feel like that's the only way, like you're saying, the only way to go forward.
Speaking of essays and everything, and I just wanted to get a sense of, for you, if when you're thinking about essays and essay collections, like what's the difference, or how do you think of an essay collection versus merely a collection of essays?
Yeah, I'm gonna forget now. I think about this a lot. There's just what I try to do with mine is like, okay, I had just a shit ton of essays. It was actually my husband who was like, I think you've at this point published like 25 essays. Do you have a book? And I was like, do I? I didn't know. So the thing I didn't want that some writers can do, just because each essay is so weighted and it's like done over like large swaths of time. And I'm thinking of like Sally Tisdale's book. I think it's called On Violation or Violation. It's essays spanning a long time, and they're just like kind of in like between two bounded pages, but there's no like straight up journey. I've read that. I love that book because it's just each discrete essay is amazing, but there isn't like a narrative arc. And I think that book is just a book of essays rather than like an essay collection, which I envision like just has an arc. Like there's like an invitation to start, something like, hey, this is the book I'm going to write. And then maybe like some like markers in between of like, hey, we're on this road together. Here's what's about to happen. Or maybe here's like a little teaser. And those are the kind of collections that's the kind of collection I wanted this to be, to sort of, again, I don't even know the difference, honestly. And if you could, no one, I've read so much about it. No one has been able to enlighten me, like really the difference between memoir and essays and an essay collection. Cause I see them both sort of having that arc of some kind. Like it's one larger story, discrete essays, memoirs in between.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. So that's what I tried to do here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And when I get confused about a memoir and how to like really distill something, a friend of mine, Richard Gilbert, who he wrote a great essay. No, not even an essay, just like a blog post. This was probably like in 2010, it's a long time ago, but and how he broke down how like The Great Gatsby is a memoir. It's a novel, but it's a memoir. Yeah. And it's like, of that summer. And I think of A Christmas Story with like Ralphie and everything. Like that's a memoir of that Christmas. And it's like, okay, that's what memoir is this slice of life zoomed in real tight instead of like autobiography or even segmented essays. But a great essay collection too can have kind of a thread that and recurring characters that kind of pull you along, that makes it feel cohesive, even though you could flip to any essay you want and read whatever you want.
Yeah, you could. I kind of feel like that's funny that you said, like, because you could, like, with my book, and I've read books with like the disclaimer at the beginning, like, don't you fucking read this out of order. You know what I mean? Like, you have to read this. This isn't. And I thought about doing that, but like, of course, like, I love the idea of someone like opening to push one of my essays because it's a page long, like that's fine. But also it is intended to have like kind of beginning, middle, end. But yeah, I think it's, first of all, by the way, just rewind, someone reading us at all is also a gift. So start wherever you like,
Oh yeah, to that point, one of my favorite essays, of course, in the book was How Not to Hate Your Writing, And
Oh, you love that? Thank you. Oh shit, is it funny?
it's
Is it funny?
hilarious. It is.
Okay.
It is hysterical, and I will. Most of the book is hysterical, and in this particular one, it just stuck out with me too because I have to every single day of my life is it's an exercise in not hating not only my writing but myself.
Right. True. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and this one passage that you got from or one. One quote from professors like the world isn't asking to read your work. Indeed, it may often ask whether or not it needs more writers. And it's like, good Lord. It's like, how do you create in the face of such commentary?
Is that a legit question?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because really it's kind of true. There's
Yeah.
such a finite attention out there, and it's
Right.
like
Right.
does the world really need more writers? But I would argue it does because we need those voices and that electricity on the page.
Right. I mean, like I struck that first of all, true quote, true professor did say this, like in an MFA program where it's like anyway, this is the early 2000s, so this it was a different time. Professors just said shit and you were like, "Okay, yes, maybe I shouldn't be here." I the way that I get through like tough shit like it's just a preternatural thing is just like kind of make fun of it. Is like just sort of like that is even though everything that you said is like true, like there is finite attention. Like what am I doing? Who am I doing it for? I think ultimately I have like myself as an audience in mind, or maybe like the one like my husband is a great reader, like just in general, but also of my work. Like he knows what's good and not. And if I can, like, I'm just sort of like, can I make him laugh slash cry? If I can do both of those in this essay, like, like that's I've done something. I've moved something in someone. So that's kind of what I try to think of is like I'm not looking at the world of writers capital W and like where is my place in it and like am I gonna get a big I just want to I can't think about like real stupid time wasting shit like that. I'm just like, I just need to like do the work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if I do the work, I don't know what's going to come, but I've done work. I don't know if that sounds like super like work ethic Protestant bullshit, but like I just working does kind of help through tough times.
Well, it's the only thing in this mess we're in that we can control.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that
Totally.
it's just you never know who's going to read your stuff. You never know, like
Yeah.
it could, whoever could pick it up and then share it with their legions of followers, and you're like, and suddenly,
True.
and suddenly you're Maggie Smith, and her poem goes super viral, and it leads to things she could have never imagined, and
Right.
she
Oh
can.
my God.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say those are the things like she grounds herself in the work, and you never know. As long as you're doing the work, maybe luck will strike too.
Yeah. Also, I never fucking want that to happen to me. Like
Mhm.
that's amazing how that happened to her. That's like, she was always a working writer, always just doing the stuff. And then like this good bones, like that's it. Everything turns. And like that just sounds too hard for me. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and suddenly you become, you now are like this leader among people who
Right.
want something
Right.
similar to happen to them, and you never asked for that. And so now she's
Right.
like, now it's kind of like when Eat, Pray, Love blows up. Suddenly Liz Gilbert is now like the beacon of hope, and it's like, oh my God, now
Oh my
you're like this
God.
cult leader, and you didn't
Right.
ask for that.
Right. Yeah. And and she's also and I mean, these are just both great examples because they both dealt with it so well. Like they've just like found some equanimity and like wisdom. And like I remember Liz Gilbert's like TED talk about like, I'm never gonna fucking write a book that's that famous again. And that's like fine. I was like, what? Like she, I don't know. It's just like they didn't get too stupid with the fame, which is amazing. I think I would get stupid with the fame. That's all. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't want it. I
Yeah,
don't want it.
you'd be trading in your yellowtail for something high end.
Oh yeah, $25 a bottle, sir. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then they wouldn't have to check your identification anymore.
Oh God, yes. God. They do this. Oh, cashiers at Publix, I love you, but please fucking stop doing this. You know me, you see the gray. It's quite annoying at this point.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh, speaking of like food adjacent, in this case, when you wrote about like McFoods and frozen foods at one point in the collection, like, hey, I'm a latchkey kid, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I subsisted off of Micro Magic hamburgers and
Oh
all like
God.
bagel bites and all that
Yeah,
stuff. So when you wrote like the McFoods, and you and I are the same age, so we're just
yeah, yeah.
but
Are you 1980?
80. Yeah. I've got
80.
you.
You're Gen
I've
X.
got you
You
by
you
I've
you
got you by
identify
3
Gen X.
months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're older, so you're wiser, so I bow to you.
Yeah.
Um, so,
My
but
discerning taste in frozen food.
yes. Oh, yes. Do you identify Gen
Big
X
time.
or
Yeah.
no? Okay. I knew it. I knew it. Like, of course, of course. I mean, that's what we are, but also, yes, you're also correct to identify that way. Yeah. So, growing up, like eating just absolute shit. Like, can you believe that like our generation is now parents to like farm to table like like it's silly. We just ate. It's like, oh, it's cheap and easy, and our parents are like, you just put this in your gullet,
I know.
and we just
I know, and I'd have to like move things aside from my my mom's like Jenny Craig meals that were
oh yes, oh my god,
right.
oh my god.
And you talk about these little like you say things like those little details, and like suddenly those are the things that will hook into someone's brain and be like, "Oh my god." Like I remember that from my childhood. Like
Yeah,
that's what I love about your book too. Like there are these moments where you say something very specific, and it's like, yes, that resonates. It's not just like pick your thing. Well, since we're talking about frozen foods, it's just like it's not just like frozen meals in there. It's like Jenny Craig, which says something else about the person eating those meals.
yeah, yeah. That the full meal is 152 calories, Brendan, and that's totally normal.
My
It's
God.
totally that's what our parents are doing. Like yeah. And cigarettes are good for you because they make you eat less. This is like the truth. Like this was the 80s.
I
Okay.
know. It's where my body image issues come from. It's like
Yes.
it's my mom
Yeah.
doing crunches in front of the TV to
Yep.
MacGyver, and waking up every morning and there was Denise Austin aerobic
Denise
videos on
Austin.
ESPN2.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Her fucking hair too. So the frosted everything.
Yeah.
Frosted foods and frosted hair.
The toaster
And frosted
strudels.
lipstick. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Talk about
You got the specifics too, man. That's yeah.
And the thing is, when you spread that frosting on the strudel, you use your finger to do it, and that way you can
It's a
lick your
knife.
finger at the end, so you're not wasting
Your
any of
finger's
that
a knife
icing.
or spoon. Oh yes. Oh God.
With the putting together of the essays for Nola Face, like since you had so many essays, at your beck and call, what was how did you want to order them and put them together, leave some out and put some in? So what was
Yeah.
kind of the thought process to how you put this thing together?
Yeah. That actually, once I realized, upon my husband saying, like noting to me that I had a lot of essays that I wasn't aware, that sounds like one of those things like people, I don't know if you feel like this when people are like, oh, I just forgot to eat. You're like, shut the fuck up. No one forgets to
I
eat.
know.
Like, but that I just don't forget to eat. Maybe some people do. And I truly was at the point, and I think because I'd suffered for so long, just knowing that like I don't know, I'm just not going to be a capital W writer. I'm just writing all the time. And maybe and like when publishing happened, that was always great, but I was like, yeah, but on the other side of that there's like 200 rejections. So like I just was always anyway, I truly wasn't aware that I had this amount of published work. Once I did, then the task became real kind of depressing and difficult because I was like, what exactly like you said, like this is a mess. Like what is this? So I did like like I printed everything out. I'm very, again, Gen X. I'm
Hmm.
analog. I couldn't like really visualize it looking in my computer files. I had to see it. And I just kind of looked at it and then I was like, okay, I did something that's going to like I used Microsoft Excel for the first time in my life, and where I just like made a list of these essays. And then I just figured, and I got this idea. I forget from what writer. There's all kinds of things, but I made like all these columns. I made like, oh my God, Brendan, I probably made like 50 columns. I was like, who is in these essays? Like what characters are in this essay? And then like I X'd, to see like where characters were. I wrote themes, like where is this theme? The theme of maybe violence or even like tone, like which ones are funny. Like I just found like a real slapdash way of doing that. Then because that was sort of helping. And then I was like, what are the first and last lines of each essay? Like really trying to like get into the granular, how is this, like what goes together? What words recur? That kind of stuff. So I did that. And then that still was enough because I was like, I kind of generally got some order. I wanted to start at a place of like childhood and like kind of end at a place, naturally at a place of like, as contemporary, as close to now as possible. But in the interim, I was like, what goes in between? So I asked myself the question, why did you write this book? Like, why did you write it?
Mm-hmm.
What did you want readers to get out of it? Like what kind of writer do you want to be? Like I kind of had those things, and I sort of separately was like answering those questions. And that became sort of the fence post essays that are in the introduction, which is like, hey, this is the kind of person you're going to be dealing with in this essay collection. Like I'm a fucking mess. I'm a teacher who was once and perhaps still really shitty at it. I question everything I do. I play these little games, 2 truths and a lie, with my students. I play it with myself.
You've
so
been warned.
Yes, it was. Yes, an invitation and a warning. That is actually a good way to think of it. So I started that way, and then like just kind of feeling like asking the question, as we've talked about, like it's important to me to be funny. That is how I survive life. But then it's also, I'm writing some like tragic shit too. So like, then I asked myself the question is like, is this tragedy I'm writing or comedy? And also I'm from New Orleans, which is like a city full of tragedy and comedy. So all of these questions that I was asking, sort of, I wanted to answer them and have those be like little interstitial essays that would then introduce a section of the book. So it's just all of that to say is like, it just took a lot of sort of more tears and more like, maybe it's not a book. Like, I don't know. And maybe I just published a bunch of essays and there's nothing like, there's no sense in it. But I think I got there. Yeah.
Humor can be, we've established, and I've established that this book's hilarious, and I had a rollicking good time, and I think you're hilarious on the page and on the mic, come to think of it.
Nice.
Sweet. But humor can be really hard to pull off. So, just in your drafting and as you're writing, how do you stick the landing on something, especially once you get through heavy rewrites and sometimes you don't even know what's funny anymore?
Oh my God. That is so fucking true. That is so true. I happen to have a really great writing group. We call ourselves the Supreme Cunts. And yes, I have, the book. In the book, I've co-opted that word. It's a great word. I think it's can be used in a lot of ways, and we use it in a very loving way. They kind of help me with this truly, because we've been together for a while. We meet once a week, and they kind of let me know because I have a tendency to really, I think of, this is something, I feel like I'm going another place. It's okay. It'll all come together, I promise. In workshop this semester, we've talked about, like humor. You only ever hear of dry humor. Do you know what I'm saying? Everyone's like, when you're complimenting someone's like humor, oh, he's so dry. I love how he's so dry. And I was like, what the fuck? What about the wet humorist? I'm a wet humorist. Okay. Like and then I started thinking about like stand-up that I love. That's like the dry ones, the John Mulaney's, and then the wet ones, Richard Pryor. We could talk about the distinction, but
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that? Like just dry, like I'm kind of above all of this. And and then the wet ones are just like, love me
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Like Tig Notaro is the driest of the dry.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, you need to be really paying attention, because her jokes you'll miss them if you're not like looking at like a little, just the delivery. But yeah, then there's some others that are just far. Yeah, I know exactly
Yeah.
what you mean.
Yeah. So I'm wet. I'm a wet humorist, and that can be a problem because it's just sort of like uh purple writing, very much like I'm going to keep going with this and keep going, and like not knowing when to pull back and not knowing when to stop being like love me, and adding. So it really is yeah, like you said, what the sometimes it's sort of like what is good, what is funny, I don't know. So it's just a process of like, again, time. Just taking the time with it, having other readers that you trust that sort of know the best version of you that you can be, and when you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I rely on that, and really writing funny too. I don't know, like that's why I don't know how like improv people do it. I don't know how certain people just are funny spontaneously or all the time. It's weird because I need that time, or just are doing. I have students who fucking do stand up like locally,
Huh.
and I still haven't gone. I need to go see them because that is the thing that scares me the most in the world. Like, how can you just be naked basically, and yeah, I'm gonna fucking entertain you right now for 5 minutes. I can't. Anyway,
I know.
I need the time. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like,
Well, with in the revisions and rewriting, and are you someone who likes in the notes of whatever you share, like to have only the criticism to make something stronger, or do you need some good things peppered in there, like, oh, I really like this. You know what I mean?
yes, I know what you mean. Oh, and it's like like you are reading this is something that I've been thinking about quite a lot because we just had workshop in my graduate seminar. And like I said, I'm in this writing group and we love each other. We're great. We're the best cunts ever. But the last thing that I got that they read was it's an essay for this next collection, and it's really humorously wet, and it's called Tit Milk Hotel, and it's a plug milk duct funny essay where my tit almost fell off. It actually did explode.
Oh my god.
And it was it's like a whole this is like kind of a body horror kind of collection I'm working on. But anyway, they just and because this writing group, they're my friends, and they just kind of went in for like what wasn't working, and I was like, can you all just fucking like say something nice this went on for like 20 minutes, and I was like, wait, but what about like how much you love me first? Let me go back to like one thing that's good. So all that to say is like, I philosophically believe, and like as a writing teacher, I believe that because I have students who are like, don't say anything good, only tear it apart. And I will honor what they ask of me, but like, I just feel instinctually that, and there's pedagogy, like theory that backs this up, that like the way to keep writers going, it's not to say that we're all fragile little snowflakes and with like our egos and stuff, although that might be true, but it's just, it helps to start with something that I see you because our writing is a reflection of ourselves. So like, I see what you did there. I honor it. That is good in some way. Like that's a C. So I both want to give that as a reader and a writing teacher, and I fucking need it.
Yeah.
Yes, fucking tell me something good. Like one good thing. But then I also, as I say that, I also really do need like, please help me with this. Particularly, it depends on the piece, obviously, but like most of the time when I give it to someone to read, I know it's not done, but I've already struggled mightily by myself. And I just like, I know that it's worth reading. You know what I mean? Like, I know there's something good there, but it's also probably a mess. So read my mind with the thing that you think is good that I hopefully agree with, and then tell me like, yeah, like here's where I'm lost. And so I definitely need that. I need that. Do you need that? Do you need people like, what do you do?
Yeah, I prefer at least some, like, let me know that I'm on the right path. Like,
Yeah.
you know, oftentimes I had to tell my wife this a while ago when she's reading my stuff, because she'd be like, if I don't note anything, it means I like where you're going. But I'm like, I'm like, okay. But sometimes if there's a nice passage there, it's nice to be like, oh, that one really, or just be like, you could even just write a comment like, oh, good. Oh, funny. Just something, because I don't need
Yes.
any more excuses to beat the shit out of myself. And
Mhm.
if just having a little note that, oh, you saw that was kind of clever or funny or whatever.
Yeah.
And my brilliant, awesome, amazing editor for this book I have coming out next year, by and large, he just went through and did the criticism, and I just have to like tell myself like, okay, if he didn't make a note, most likely it's just like, okay, he digs it. He digs where you're going
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it. And you sometimes have to just be like, be a pro, be a pro, and just be like, if he's trying to make it as best as he can. If there's no note or criticism, it probably means you're on the right track. But
Yeah.
we do need, like, I know I do, and it sounds like you do too. It helps to just be like, yeah, this is a good cracking paragraph, or like I like where you're going with this. Just something very subtle that'll put enough fuel in my tank to make sure I'm not totally delusional. I can keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know what, Brendan? I think it's time to ask for what you need, and just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can do an LOL, and I will, like, one tiny lowercase LOL will fucking sail me through these next few pages. I mean, like, truly.
It really is. It doesn't take much. You don't have to break it down, but just like, okay, cool. Like, all right, I'm not. Otherwise, it just feels like they're bored. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're
Like,
not saying
nothing.
anything, you're like, oh, all right, I guess you're just kind of going along, going through the motions, and you're bored,
Also,
which is
did you read
worse.
it? Did you read this page? This empty page full of, like, with no note? Like, did you fucking read it? Like, that's that. I kind of,
I
yeah.
know when I was getting notes from my editor, and I would do this thing, and I would get a big chunk of chapters, and all I would do is I would just scroll as fast as I could for his comments, and it was so all I was doing was mainlining criticism, and I would read it. I'm like, ugh. And I'd have to go for like an hour-long walk. I might not even be able to touch it that day because I would just get so demoralized.
I know it. I
It's like
know.
not a
I
good
know it.
practice.
I know. I feel you so hard. I know.
Well,
Yeah.
a little while ago in conversation, you were talking about so much of the rejection that was behind a lot of the essays that you wrote, and I think a lot of people who listen to the show they struggle with rejection still, and even though it's the way of the land, it is so natural.
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
the more it's a numbers game, it's a
Yeah,
timing
totally.
game, it's a luck
Yep.
game, and so just
Yep.
as you were developing the scars and the calluses around rejection, just like how did you just work through that so you realized that it just like what we were saying, a numbers game and just part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I've been part of several writing groups over the years that just, how it makes me sad. I kind of want to write about my writing groups at some point because they've all been great, but just, people move away or just things change. Anyway, let me not get into that reverie, but one I remember maybe a decade or more ago in one of my writing groups, dear friend Jessica said something like, she just reframed it for me. I never forgot what she said. Because she was also like, she was trying to get her book out and been rejected many times. And she was like further along than me. And she was just like, I just always think that when I get rejected, it's just like, oh, it's just like this little sweet little piece, this sweet little baby hasn't found its home yet. Like there's just another home. There's always going to be a home, but it's just just a very hopeful reframing of like, this is informing me of something. I don't know why. And I don't like even totally fully buy that because it's like sometimes there might not be a home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there might not be, but just keeping that hopefulness and just like, it's not it's not fucking personal, but it feels so personal, you
Yes.
know? And
Yeah.
it just took, like you kind of phrase it perfectly, like the calluses, the scars. It makes it now so that it's just sort of like, well, it's a reminder that I'm actually in the game and I'm doing it. Like there's a feeling still, it's like, I still like just rejecting your rejection now, which will always happen. But it's amazing how the more you do something, the easier it is. And getting rejected, just the more it's happened, the more I'm like, it's fucking, yeah, that makes sense. And there was like in my 20s, I was such an idiot. This is how like, I was such an idiot. I thought like, I got rejected and I was like, they fucking hate me. they hate me. They like, I thought that people thought about me. That's the that's the funniest thing. Like, they hate me, or either that, like, I'm worthless, or this piece is just, and that's the thing that's still, I think writing groups help with, or like our spouses, trusted readers, to know, like, when something's like, when rejection can teach you, like, is this done yet? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I've gotten to the point at, like, by now, that I'm not sending out shit that's not really good. Or like, I've taken it to where I can take it. I'm not sending out before then. And I think learning how to get to that spot, and when you're at that spot, that's another thing that just takes time, and again, takes, like, your readers or your editors to know, like, don't put this out there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to that point, just further pulling on that string, like, how do you know when something is ready to be put through the mill and possibly up for rejection, but hopefully publication?
Yeah. That is really profound and hard to answer, but this is, like, the honest thing. When I am not waking up in the middle of the night with the, like, thinking about this, the actual essay, like, the discrete thing, like, because I'm perimenopausal now, so, like, I'm fucking always waking up in the middle of the night. The good part about that is that it helps the work. Like, I'm like, I wake up and something in my subconscious is like, oh yeah, there's a note on that essay. There's a note. Like, there's just something that like, penultimate paragraph is weird. This is the answer. Like, weird shit like that comes to me in the middle of the night. And then when that stops happening for any individual piece, like, that's kind of when I know. And also that, and I've read it and read it and read it, printed it out in a different fucking font. Like, I try many different ways of being like, what could possibly be different? And when those answers stop coming, that's when I know. And by the way, that's when it's finished. And guess what happens? You see it in the book, and you're like, oh, that wasn't fucking done. It wasn't done anyway. So, this never ends.
I have a 3 a.m. voice that almost makes me bolt upright almost every night, especially during this last year and a half, 2 years or so. What is the nature of your 3 a.m. voice, and how do you reckon with it? Oh
God, that was the way that your voice in that question was. That's terrifying. How do I reckon with it? I mean, so yours is different, because I don't think you're perimenopausal, but I know I am. And so there's a lot of, like, fighting. Like, there's a lot of me fighting myself, where it's like, why is my body doing this? I can't do, like, this is bad. So I fight a lot, sort of like the 3 a.m. is sort of, at first, I'll just say this, when I don't fight it, everything is better. Like, sometimes the 3 a.m. is sort of like, you have unresolved shit. This is the time that, like, your body is making you do this right now. Like, you didn't do the shit during the day, and this is what you get. So there's that. And when I can kind of just, like, understand that I might be up for the next hour, and do whatever work, by which I mean, like, pulling up the notes on my phone and just, like, getting this shit down. I don't go to therapy, so I guess this is, like, my body's way of forcing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also, like, it helps with life, but it helps with, sadly, it helps with the work. And when I say it helps with life, it doesn't help with the next day. The next day is shit,
Oh yeah.
Every day is shit, Brendan. Every day is shit, because I'm waking up with this. Every day is really hard because I'm tired. But resolving stuff in the middle of the night, I feel like, I don't know. Also, I've talked to the doctor, and they're just like, oh, this is just your next 10 years. This is just what your body does. And it's like, this is what women get told. Like, you just have to live with this. So, okay. But, if it's working toward the writing, I mean, I don't know. I always want to feel, I don't know if you're this way too. I feel like we are, like, in this, like, gotta be productive.
Oh yeah.
So if I'm gonna be like, up, I just, not that it's gonna be brilliant or anything, but I'm gonna not fight anymore with the voice that woke me up, and just kind of succumb and just do it.
Yeah. And the one thing I can't do, though, when I'm confronted with waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, is like, the idea of going and having a screen blaring in my face.
I know.
I
I
just I
know. You're
can't
right.
I
You're
can't
right.
do it. So hopefully I've got a paper book that I can read. I mean, so many of the books I read for the show, it's sometimes it's a PDF that I have to pull up on my antiquated iPad or my Kindle, or in the case of some others that I do have a printed book. I'm like, all right, just get up and go read and try to knock out of 10 pages or so, take some
No,
notes.
I do that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. Oh God, do you read PDFs? Can you do
Yeah,
that?
sometimes that's all the publicists send me.
Okay. Oh God, I'm so glad that you got a paper copy of my, like, that's so good.
Yeah, me
I
too. It's I understand. Like sometimes yeah, we're saving on materials and postage.
Yeah,
But yeah, I like marking things up. I like writing things in the margins,
yeah.
color coding things, putting sticky tabs in. It's just that's how I like to have a conversation with the book in that way.
Totally
Yeah.
love it. I'll never change in that way.
Yeah.
Never.
Are you someone who likes to write in the margins and mark things up and like kind of make it your own in a way?
Yes, and you know what? It's really embarrassing because I PDF a lot for my students. Like I assign books, but then it's also like, oh yeah, you need this from like this craft book, like just a few pages here. And it's like my stupid shit is all over it. And so they're very sweet and they make fun of me. They're like, in the recent reading, I underlined and I wrote in the margins, pay attention, Brooke, this is for you. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so cringe, but yeah, it makes me happy to write and talk to myself in the margins for sure.
What are some craft books or go-to craft books for you?
Oh, oof, oof, oof. I have so many, and like, well, The Art of Memoir, Mary Carr. That is two Mary Carr references.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
you're welcome, Mary Carr. Tell It Slant is a great one for creative nonfiction. Just in general. Philip Lopate has one. Anyone like that is just sort of general stuff about the essay, and I'm forgetting the Philip Lopate one, but he's got a great craft book. Also, Carl Klaus, who spent a lot of time at Iowa Writers Workshop, has two that I love, two little slim volumes on voice and persona that are great. Vivian Gornick's Situation in the Story. Oh my, I could go on, but like those are just some like top of mind. Situation in the Story is one I taught this semester, that I think helps solidify the difference between memoir and essay, and really what voice is, what persona is, how to develop it. That it's one that I read like once a year because it's also slim, and it's helpful to like get back to that and remember like what is it, how do you create yourself on the page. It's very helpful in that way.
I know with a lot of craft books, it can be energizing and inspiring to read them, but oftentimes, this is speaking from personal experience, it can
Yeah.
be difficult to actually put it into practice. It feels like writing by reading craft book. Oh, I'm learning all this stuff, but then when it comes down to brass tacks and sitting in front of the computer and actually writing down the gross bullshit that's going to come out of your fingertips, you just kind of don't do it. And I imagine maybe for you, how do you actually put it into practice and do do the work?
Yeah, that's really true. I think it depends on, like, for me, like the current writing project, and often like the discrete essay I'm working on. And I also am this type of way. I know you write like sort of bigger biography books, like a big book project, and I have not yet. I still sort of work in the essay form. Not that you're not writing essays, but you know what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have like a big project, and so I'll have like 4 or 5 essays going at once, and they each require a different sort of thing from one of these craft books, like some sort of like, okay, this is what you have to do here. And so I mean, just, this is not like revolutionary, or maybe it doesn't even work, but I'll write like in Sharpie on like one of my big note cards some version of pay attention, Brooke, or whatever like that note is. Like, oh, I there was one I was working on this kind of music essay actually about Sinead O'Connor for this upcoming anthology that Simon Schuster's putting out. Super excited,
Nice.
where each writer took a different song from Sinead O'Connor, and we sort of wrote around it. Like, our personal experience behind it. It was really great. But the note for that one, I threw it away because I'm done with the essay, but it said something like, just tell the truth, stop being full of shit. Like just
Mhm.
something like that. Like the thing that I needed to guide that thing is like always around me while I'm working on the thing, like in the office, like floating on my cork board somewhere. So it just those little reminders I think are helpful, and it changes. And sometimes like in an essay, it'll be like, okay, I've stopped. I've told the truth. I've stopped being full of shit, but now I just kind of need to like get some kind of organization going. Like I've got to stop being like so crazy with this. So rein it in, Brooke. You know, whatever it is. You know.
Tell me about this corkboard.
Oh, it is. It's right in front of me. It's from I believe Hobby Lobby. It's currently got a list of the essays that for one of my book projects that I'm working on, highlighted the ones that are there. They're highlighted that are finished. I also have like a lot of my kids' drawings. I told myself like, this is my fucking office. Like they will not invade. Guess what? They're all over this son of a bitch, but it's great because it's like a reminder. Okay, I do have like a life outside of writing, and so my daughter. I just have to say this. She drew this thing. She drew this cat. She's an artist, and she drew this cat that's I'm looking at it right now with like pen. She did all this in pen, but it's brilliant. She drew this cat that's like raising its paw to press on this red button, and it says something will happen any day now, right? And it's a cat that's put like perpetually pushing this red button. And I was like, she drew this when she was like 6 years
Oh my
old.
God.
And I was like, this is for writers. Like you're just pushing the same button over and over and over again, and you're asking yourself something will happen any day now, right? It's like she read my soul. So it's actually a good thing to be up in any writer's room. So I want to get that printed someday for all my writer friends.
That's amazing. I love that. You'll have to take a picture of that and send that to
I
me. I'd
will.
love to see
I will.
that.
Yes, I will.
Well, here's one thing, Brooke, that I want to ask you just as we bring our conversation down for a landing. Though I'm somewhat sad, I feel like we could talk for 5 hours, and
Totally.
which
Yes.
only means we'll have to do many more of these in the future.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
But this is kind of a new question I've been asking people at the very end, and it's just a bit of advice, either that you've received from a treasured mentor or just hard-won advice through 20 years of writing. What that looks like, a best piece of advice, be it from somebody else or just hard-won. What would that be?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I thought you were going to ask me for the recommendation.
I
And
got
so
away from
that
that.
is what I studied for. That's what I prepared for. But that's fine. This is good
I'll
too.
tell you why
This
I
is good.
went away from that, because
Yeah.
every
Oh,
single time no one was reading the confirmation notes, and they were always flat-footed at the end, and then they were just kind of like, "Oh, what?" I was like, and I would tell them like, "Well, I did send you the confirmation notes." You're like, "Oh, I didn't look," and so I decided to just get away from that. But you can share the recommendation too, and I also got no feedback from that too, like from listeners like that. Yeah, no one was just like, "Oh,
okay.
that was really cool. I really like that part of the show." So anyway,
You know what? I'm going to do a thing where I combine the two. Like it's
awesome.
kind of recommendation slash the hard one advice. I think one thing that has helped me and that I was like gonna sort of recommend is to like occasionally when you can try shit that is really outside of your comfort zone. I hate you, but like just to do the thing that you're like, I can't do that. And I think that's just a way to like keep living. When I look at like and because like writing is just it's hard for all the reasons that we've talked about. It can be so lonely, isolating. Why are we doing this? What is the point? All of that stuff. And so as writers, when we can like really be in body in some way, and especially a way that you haven't before, like challenging yourself to something. And I say that my recommendation was going to be Zumba,
Oh wow.
which by the way, I discover everything like 20 years after it's the thing. Like I literally went to class last week and I was like, oh, God, guys, have you all heard of Chapel Roan? That's how at this point Chapel Roan is like, globally famous. But I never heard her songs before. I'm whatever. But when I say Zumba, I mean insert something that you said you would never do and try that thing, because I did that and it was like I was like, Zumba is for like goofy old ladies who don't have rhythm and they look so silly. And it unlocked something about like learning how my body could move in a different interesting way. But yeah, just trying new things. And I will say this too, like I teach a class in immersion sometimes, and what I have students do is like having them immerse in their like the things that they like know that they're good at, that they like, the piano, whatever. And then that's half of the semester. And the other half of the semester is now they randomly pick from someone else's thing and they have to immerse in something else.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Learn about it, do it, like do the thing. And so writing from an insider and outsider perspective. And it's always, whenever I've taught that class, it's a great assignment because it freaks them the fuck out. Like, yeah. I had a young gentleman have to do color guard, which is like a, female sort of like version of kind of like not dance team. It's like dance team with rifles. I don't really fully understand it.
Yeah.
It's at football games. It's sort of militaristic, but it's also like, so he had to do this, and it was doing things like that is not expected of you is a way to just like keep going, I think. So just trying to find a way to surprise yourself by doing new things. Oh, and be stubborn as fuck. That is my only advice. Like if you want to write, you just have to like just be stubborn, bullheaded as hell. Friends.
Oh, amazing. Well, Brooke, like I said a moment ago, like, yeah, so great to get to talk to you and just about your work and about how you go about the work. So just thanks for carving out some time to do this. This is wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. It's absolutely lovely. Such a fan of the pod. Yeah, keep going. I'm looking forward to your book.
Go on. Tell me that was bad. That was amazing. Yes. Awesome. Thanks to Brooke for coming on the show. She's a force, man. I can see her being a co-host of this show if that was a thing. Or a guest who comes on twice a year. Oh, man. Thank you for listening, CNFers. And thanks to the Power of Narrative Conference for promotional support. One last thing. Consider pre-ordering The Front Runner so my publisher will love me. During this conversation, we talked about feedback and it being nice to hear what's good from time to time. The writer's mind isn't necessarily equipped to handle an unrelenting barrage of criticism. Yes, leveling up weaknesses is how we get better, in one sense, but it's also being told that nebulous term, what's working, that also keeps our spirits from cratering. During the writing of The Front Runner, I could probably count on one hand the amount of complimentary feedback I received from the manuscript itself. I could probably count it on a Ninja Turtle hand, if you know, you know. I'm a pretty insecure dude, I think you know that. But I'm also not pathologically needy, so I never once asked that awkward question, so what do you like? What's working? I'd rather not know than hear someone blather their way through some cloudy explanation, a meandering generality that's really saying the loud part quiet. Then I got to thinking that the proof that I'm somewhat decent at what I do is the very fact that I was granted permission to do this in the first place. You know, if a quarterback is drafted in the first round, obviously people believe in him. Like, what more proof do you need? From that point on, it does nobody any favors to pad the ego, when instead we should be developing him to the fullest realization of his abilities. But that said, when you hear criticism or that's all you hear, it's real easy to get discouraged. It's nice on occasion to hear that you're doing well or hear what you do well. That gives you confidence to know that your spin on things is entertaining, be it funny or gripping or lyrical, if lyrical is your thing. Personally, I'm not a fan, but, you do you. Hear that your language is beautiful, if that's like what you're into. To me, I want my writing to kind of look like you're staring at Charles Bukowski's face. It's just unsettling. It takes so much delusion on the part of the artist to keep at it from time to time. It'd be nice to feel reinforced, but as things level up, as you become more of a pro, it might just be that what goes unsaid is the greatest compliment and the greatest proof of your abilities as a writer. It's just, you swim around long enough, you're bound to get, random fish hooks stuck in your mouth or a six-pack ring around your neck. You just caught on some body parts pulling you down to the bottom of the lake. You need people to free you from that shit to give you buoyancy. Also, if a publisher is giving you some money to do it, that might be the only compliment you need. For me, I need to know from time to time that, if you're reading my stuff, that you're not bored. Like Brooke said, like a tiny LOL. Or maybe just a tiny good in the margin. Like, that's it. That's all I need. That's all it takes. To know that you're not completely deluded. So stay wild, CNFers. And if you can't do, interview. See ya.